Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to have a look at marketing for the second year revision. So just a recap of what you need to know. So understand what areas of research are needed when identifying target markets, what corporate identity is and what goes into branding, what needs to go into packaging including key symbols, different types of advertising and promotion, and then how costing is calculated for profit. So first of all, before you can start to properly promote and sell a product, you need to have an aim of who you are actually targeting as a whole. Now, obviously, with coursework, you have a client and a client profile. That's a very targeted person, but generally, never are products made and sold commercially for one individual person unless you've gone and had something commissioned specifically. What they are done is things are set to whole target markets and target areas. Now, depending on the different grouping, people have different preferences, different choices. So it could be to do with age bracket. So obviously someone who is 5 is going to have a much different taste to someone who is 13 compared to someone that is 21 compared to someone that's 35 and so on. So those can make quite a big difference. Gender can make a difference as well, although some people don't like to think that it can, but genuinely sometimes it does. Disposable income, so that's extra money they have after they paid for bills, rent, those types of things. How much extra disposable income do they have? Residential location, so where do they actually live? So different hobbies and different interests depending on where they live in the country or where they live in the world. And then recreational interests. So actually, what are people's areas, like their hobbies? So what are more people likely to invest in because they're interested in it? So along with that, so those are certain areas that you can break down into target markets. There are also certain things that can motivate customers to buy products. So that could be social or emotional needs. So those can break down. So you look down at the bottom right of the screen here. That could be things to do with your personal security, status, privacy, community, achievements, those sort of things. It could be family needs. So if it is someone that's got a young family or they've got older children or no kids at all, that type of thing. Budget pressures, and again that sort of links back to disposable income. So it might be if people do not have a disposable income, so they've got a lot more pressure around what they can spend. Then you've got brand loyalty or preference as well. Now lots of you probably do that have a brand loyalty without really even realising it. The most common and simplest one to go is if you're a gamer and you either like to play on Xbox, PlayStation or PC. The same thing we said for what kind of trainers do you like. Do you normally always wear Jordans or Air Maxes or whatever it is, or clothing? Do you have a particular brand of t-shirts that you always like to wear? So some people just sort of get everything, but quite a lot of people sort of in their head they'll be, I know that I like this brand, it's always good quality, and that's what people tend to go with. So corporate identity, so this is basically the whole term for what goes into branding. Now companies are very, very protective of their branding, because that's how they're recognised globally. Now there's quite a few things that go into their branding. So that is things like the colours that they use, the actual logo that they have, or multiple logos, the fonts that they use, and the brand name that goes with it. So if we take something like Coca-Cola, which is really easy, yes, it's a red logo, but that particular shade of red is Coca-Cola red. Same with, say, McDonald's and that Golden Arches, the yellow, that particular yellow is their yellow. Same with Cadbury's and purple, and that is their Cadbury's purple. That's not to say that Coca-Cola own all of reds, and anyone that uses reds is liable for lawsuits. It just means that particular shade of red is theirs. With logos, now everyone the whole point of logos obviously is they're instantly recognisable. It doesn't matter what country you're in; they should be easily recognisable no matter what language barrier that there is. Again, companies are really, really protective of that. That's why if you see knockoffs and there's slight changes, companies will prosecute because you're essentially stealing their custom base. Fonts, obviously not all companies will have certain fonts, but particularly if they've got, say, writing in their logo, in their name, like Coca-Cola, like L'Oreal, those type of fonts, obviously that's their font, that's their Coca-Cola font. And then the brand name that goes with it. So all of those together are what make up the core of a brand, and they are very, very protective of it. Now what I've got here at the bottom right, so these are what are deemed as being the most valuable brands of 2020. Obviously, there are certain things that have happened in 2020 that mean certain companies have done particularly well, things like Amazon. But all of these, some of these, I'm sure you know and probably use quite regularly. Obviously, Apple is a very, very big one. A lot of people, we talked about brand loyalty on the previous slide, a lot of people have very much strong brand loyalty to Apple, so they have iPhones, iPads, Mac computers, and they're just very much in that I'm an Apple fan. Some people go the other way and go, I'm just not having anything Apple. It's honestly, they pretty much do the same thing, let's be real. But it's just down to the branding and actually what people choose to prefer. And then obviously, because we are the Western world and we are, a lot of us are English speaking, but then there are a huge, like, more people that don't speak our language, that are not from this part of the world. So there are certain, like, brands that we won't know about that are slotted in Asian countries that are still absolutely huge brands and that just haven't made their way over to Europe. So we'll stick with Coke because it's such a big brand for now. So brands can change over time. Just because you've made a brand doesn't mean you're going to stick with it for forever and ever. Like logos can change slightly. Take like Apple for example. Obviously they have that Apple like logo with the bite out of it, but if you can remember or if you've seen it before, it was never used to be that white apple. It used to be actually a rainbow coloured one. So just logos and brands do change a little bit over time. Sometimes they have a big rebrand where they kind of relaunch everything and it's completely new. Sometimes it's just little tweaks here and there. Some companies also do like sort of seasonal changing as well. A big one with Coca-Cola is actually Christmas time. And they do a big thing about having the Christmas lorry and the Christmas advert for Coca-Cola. And some people kind of see that as being like, oh, it's Christmas time, it's officially nearly Christmas. I've seen the Christmas advert with Coca-Cola lorry with the song Holidays Are Coming. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing it. But that is a really, really good way of how you can make your brand be associated by other people with Christmas. Also, other little things they do, like things like having personalised, like just having names on bottles. Quite a simple thing, but that's sort of like emotional branding because it's kind of like, oh, everyone wants to try and collect their name on it, and it does have that big thing. So it's just clever little things that can be done to sort of psychologically make you think of that brand. Now, while we do this, we're talking about Christmas and Coca-Cola. Obviously, one of the most common myths is that Coca-Cola did the rebranding of Santa, and originally he was green. Originally he was green, but Coca-Cola had nothing to do with the whole rebranding of it. They've just taken his image and they've used it quite a lot. Other companies could choose to do that if they wished. They would have to do it slightly differently, obviously, because otherwise it would just be copying. But just I thought I'd throw that out there because obviously loads of people seem to think that they were responsible for that whole rebrand and they weren't. It was done a long time ago. So packaging. Packaging obviously is a huge aspect of branding because you can have your colours on there, you have your logos on there, and you all have it as part of the really, really key part of your whole brand because it's what kind of contains the product, and that's what everyone first sees when they go into the shops, particularly not so much online shopping, but actual going into physical shops, and the packaging is the first thing you see. That's why it's got to be bold, it's got to be bright, it's got to be really clear, it's your brand. However, there are some things that need to be on there for everyone, okay? So we've talked about it before in previous series, things like on plastics and sustainability and that type of thing. So kind of symbols that need to go on to packaging. So it might be things like telling you what the materials are. So if it's a plastic, what's the polymer recycling codes from 1 to 7? So you can sort it out and make sure it can be recycled. If it's made from from timbers, has it got the FSC logo on it? Does it need Does it need a logo to tell you to be recycled? Does it need anything like that? And then obviously if it's like food bases, does it need to have things excuse me, like allergy information? So there's certain things that must be on there regardless of what brand it is, but it is then also still a tool as well as part of a promotion. And then again, we'll stick with Coca-Cola because it's such a big brand. They change their packaging to have Christmas, so they then got like Christmas themed Coca-Cola bottles as well. So global marketing. Obviously, we are now living in a world where you can buy a product from so many different parts of the world. Obviously, things like Amazon, you can ship internationally. And it really is now a global market where you can't just buy what is local to you. You can buy it from wherever you want. So with that, and obviously you've got different international audiences, in order to sort of get the biggest customer base is a lot of companies will just have their product, but then they will change them slightly to make it have a more universal appeal. And the biggest example of that is someone like McDonald's. McDonald's are in so many different countries, and if you've ever been to a McDonald's when you've been abroad, it looks pretty similar, but there will be some slight changes to the menu to just tailor towards that country's preferences. Okay, that's why occasionally when you see it in England and they say, oh, coming for this month only, and then they have like the American menu. That's just to show, oh, look, these are the different things we have in America. If you have it in China, if you have it in Germany, in the Philippines, in India, so it'll still be the McDonald's brand and it'll still have the ingredients, but it'll be changed slightly to tailor more towards that country's preferences. And this is just one example. Loads of global massive companies will do that. So it'll be the same thing, but they'll tweak it slightly just to make it more accessible and more appealing to the different market. So in terms of advertising promotion, there are loads and loads of different types of advertising, and actually more are developing as we go on. Obviously, you got the standard ones like the TV, radio, magazines. Those are sort of like the standard ones that everyone sort of remembers and knows about. Then you got things like internet pop-ups that happen quite a lot. Like those annoying little boxes that you see and you can always try and avoid it, and sometimes they just pop up on your phone or anything like that. Then you got billboards like on the side of the road, bus shelter posters, those sort of things. One thing that's becoming relatively not new because social media's been around for a long time, but social media's been used a lot more in recent times for promotion. Obviously, things like influencers being paid a lot to promote types of things, streamers that play like video games and those sorts of things. All that is becoming now it's a legitimate source of advertising because I can't remember what the exact figures are, but the amount of people that watch things like Twitch and watch streamers or are on Instagram and looking at influencers, and that has a huge effect on company sales. And then you got things like in-store promotions where if you go in and then you go to the till and then it goes, oh, you bought all that, but look, 2 for 1, or buy one, get one free, that sort of thing. And there's in-store promotions, and when you go, these trigger, oh, that's a good deal, I'll get that. And that's what they tend to have as well in the aisles. At the end of each aisle, they'll have those there just to sort of show you what's going on. Going viral. So there is, so obviously, we're going to go viral in a bit more detail on the next slide, but then that also does link to the whole social media idea as well. So talk a bit more about social media. So like I say, it's a much cheaper and easier option to reach more potential customers than TV. Actually, I think most people now will say they don't really watch as much TV as they used to, but people are on social media a lot more because obviously, typically you're on your phone or your iPad or whatever. When you're on searching things and it always says, oh, we use cookies on the site, what that means is basically, okay, it'll track whatever websites you've been on and it keeps it as a record. And then what happens is that means when you go onto like social media, that's why if you go on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is, and you see adverts, it's very much, sometimes what you were just searching on a website pops up as an advert. You think, well, that's a bit creepy, but that's because it's just gone into your phone and gone, okay, you were just on this website, let's advertise this to you. And that's why you end up getting very, very specific adverts. So that's called retargeted marketing. Often as well, what will happen is when you sign up to social media sites, it asks you to like enter personal information like name, age, that sort of thing. But then it'll also ask you to put in a few like interests about you. So they think, oh, we're going to tailor it more towards you. But really what it's saying is, I know what you like now, and I'm now going to promote these products for you to buy. So advertising in sport. Obviously, sport is a huge thing, and there are sports all around the world, and some sports are absolutely global. Things like football, obviously, is an incredibly global sport. So advertising can either be taken as like a whole team, or it can be like as individual athletes. So like individual football stars can have their own endorsements, their own sponsorships, or like teams can have their main shirt sponsor. I'll talk about F1 because it's a sport I'm a big fan of and I know quite a lot about. F1 is known for being the richest sport in the world and actually having the widest global appeal because it's raced all around the world and they've got races from all around the world, and it's a very rich sport. So they will have, if you look, this is the most recent Ferrari. We've got Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel, the current race drivers, but the amount of advertising space that they have all around the car. So they got the main, obviously, I don't know if anyone knows anything about F1, but Pirelli being the normal tyre. Shell have always been with Ferrari for a very, very long time. Minowa, Ray-Bans, UPS, Hublot, all of these are huge brands, not necessarily in England, but in other countries that watch it. So you also will have, obviously, you've got a German driver and I don't know what the term is, from Monaco, Charles Leclerc, but you'll have more brands for the countries that they're from because people will follow that. So a driver that is English, that's driving, so like George Russell, who drives in a Williams, he'll have more English adverts on his car compared to, say, Sergio Perez, who is a Mexican driver. He will have more Mexican advertisements on his car because Mexican fans will support him. So that's sort of how it tailors more towards your own preferences. And we talk about TV adverts as well, and we'll link that to sport. What they can do during sporting activities, so in break times, you can then advertise for those slots as well. So during the Super Bowl, which obviously is the big grand final of American football, a 30-second advert cost £3.8 million to buy that 30-second slot in 2018. So it's a huge amount of money to pay for TV. Whereas if you've got like social media, it's an awful lot cheaper. It's certainly not £3.8 million worth of advertising. And then we'll stick with social media a little bit more. So obviously then, a little bit outdated, 2019, and you're looking at who like the most, like the biggest Instagram names are, and obviously then when they advertise things, they get paid for it. But the amount of people that are following, like Ronaldo, The Rock, Kim Kardashian, Taylor Swift, those sort of people, like so many followers. So you think rather than, like, they might not be watching TV, but someone's following Cristiano Ronaldo and you go, oh, I got these new boots. A lot of people are going, oh, you know what, I'm going to get those boots because Ronaldo's got those boots. Or Kim Kardashian and makeup. I don't know anything about Kim Kardashian, but I assume she sells makeup. Those sorts of things. And you even got, so let's talk about going viral as well. So going viral is the term basically that a message is sent out, and then if one person shares it to 2 people, then 2 people share it to 5 people, and 5 people share it to like 50 people, and it kind of spreads like that. So typically what will happen is companies will try the whole idea of going viral in the introduction and growth stages of the product life cycle. So on the right hand side here, you got what is essentially known as the product life cycle. So what you have is introductions when like a product is first launched into the market, where sales are quite slow because it's not really known that much, so you're not really making much of a profit. The growth is when you start to like pick up, popularity starts to come in, you start to get a lot more known, sales start to pick up before you go into maturity where your sales sort of peak, and then you go into decline a little bit unless you have a little product extension. So going viral is when like that's the time when you're trying to get as many eyes on your product as possible. And that's really what you want to try and do, is go viral like in the introduction stage and the beginning of the growth stage, because that's what will kind of make your product explode as much as possible. Now, going viral, easier said than done, because some people think like, I've got this viral video idea and it just doesn't take off. So it's not a guaranteed thing. People can try. I mean, we always try and do like silly, funny adverts, or you get pretty people on it, or you get like animal, like all these sort of things you can try to go viral, but you can never 100% guarantee that going viral is going to work. So last thing we need to go over for marketing, so you understand the whole concept of how companies will like promote and sell themselves, is then how do you actually like calculate like costs and profit and that sort of thing. So the cost of products and manufacturing can be broken down into 2 things. So you've got direct costs and indirect costs. So direct costs are associated with making a specific product. So that could be like the labour, so actually you physically doing it, the materials, consumable product supplies, and factory overheads, so things like tools, machinery, that type of thing. Indirect costs are those that are not specifically associated with making that one product, but involved in running the business as a whole. So like things like the admin, security, maintenance, the electricity bill, rent, that type of thing. Okay, so direct cost, indirect cost. So what you need to do is calculate the cost per unit, one unit with one single item. So it's like total direct materials costs, add that to your total direct labour costs, plus total manufacturing overhead costs, and divide it by the number of units made, and then you get the cost of one particular unit. So I'm going to run through an example for you now. So you would find this in a question. It will probably be like a 2-3 part question, probably worth 6 marks, that type of thing. It's worth noting as well that obviously in the maths questions you need to show you're working out, because even if you end up with the wrong answer, if you show the working out process, you will still get some marks, but not all of them. So a designer, maker of furniture needs to calculate what they need to charge per chair, so they know that they want to earn a gross salary of £22,000. So that's before tax. So 8 steps to it. So first of all is calculate the cost of overheads, so workshop rent, insurance, etc. So in this example, we'll call that £12,500. So then step 2 is decide how much time will be spent per week making the actual physical product. So in this example, 40% of a typical 40-hour working week, assuming as well that they take 4 weeks off per year, like a holiday in the summer or Christmas or whatever. So they need to calculate the hourly overhead costs. So 48 weeks, obviously 52 weeks in a year, 4 weeks holiday, so 48 weeks times 40 hours a week times 40% gets you 768 hours a year. So that's how many hours they're working. So divide the yearly overhead cost by the number of hours worked. So the overheads are 12,500. So divide that by 768 hours, which gets you £16.28. So calculate the required hourly wage. So 20,000 divided by 768. So that gets you £28.65. So step 5 then is calculate the total hourly rate. So hourly wage plus overhead costs. So £16.28 plus £28.65. That gives you a total of £44.93. So then work out how long it takes you to make one chair. Now, in the example, it says 2.5 hours. In the proper question, it would always tell you that as well. You wouldn't have to suddenly start calculating how long it takes them to make the chair. That would just be information it gives you. And then step 7, multiply the hourly rate by the time it takes to make one chair. So it makes 2.5 hours, which will cost £44.93. So in total, that would be £112.33. Then add in the materials cost to the hourly rate. So in this example, materials cost per chair is £15, which then gives you a total of £127.33. So that's how much it costs to make one chair, including someone's, like, the maker's time's worth. That's how much it's going to cost me in terms of my labour, in terms of my materials, in terms of resources, everything. That's how much a manufacturer would charge. It is worth noting as well, though, that retailers, so obviously the maker isn't going to then sell it. They'll sell it, but they'll sell it to a retailer who will then sell it in a shop. So generally what will then happen is the price is doubled, and that's what you get the RRP, which is the recommended retail price. So typically it's double whatever the manufacturing costs actually were. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at some exam questions. So this is going to be in a little bit of paper 1 and paper 2. It's probably going to be a multiple part question. There might be quite long questions, so we're going to go through them. So first one, state 3 specific methods company use to raise awareness of their brand. So 3 marks, nice and simple, 3 bullets. Just note that naming a type of advertising only counts for 1 point. So you can't name 3 different types of advertising. You also need to avoid really general terms like internet. Okay, so what you can't do is say like TV and then mention something else in TV and that sort of thing. It's got to be like very, very different things. Okay, so 3 minutes, pause the video, have a go answering. So what you'll have is corporate identity, so things like names, brand names, logos, that type of thing. Packaging design, global marketing, advertising and promotion. That's why you can only say you're advertising once, so like TV, commercials, that type of thing. Viral marketing, social media. So any of those 3 would have been fine. So next question, study the photograph of the Easter egg packaging, figure 1 and 2 above. Explain why high quality card is needed to make the box. So 4 marks. 4 marks is 2 points for that explanation. If you're not sure, have an educated guess. It's packaging for chocolate that has bright colours printed on it. What kind of properties do you think it needs? So 4 marks. Pause the video. Have a go answering it, then unpause it. So a white colour high quality card is required to ensure that the print colours and graphics appear bright, because it's nice bright colours, so obviously you need to have white card first to make it brighter. So packaging is done for factory and retail because it makes it more desirable to touch. It looks good, good quality card, it's going to attract people's attention. It'll be more rigid, it'll be stronger and easier to make, and more resistant to damage, and then much smoother than lower grade cards, making it ideal for printing graphics and that type of thing. Okay. Describe the stages of product life cycle in relation to a modern kettle. 6 marks. Pause the video, have a go at answering it. Okay, so we talked about the product life cycle a little bit in the advertising part of it. So research and development, so designers research new technologies, work with user groups, developing new kettles. Introduction, they're brought into the market with advertising campaign, early sales, not a lot of profit being made. Stage 3 growth, sales start to rise a little bit, profits and sales are still quite slow, but as you get higher up you start to make a bit more profit. Maturity is where you peak, sales have peaked, profits reach the highest point. Decline is where the sales start to decline a little bit, profit is still being made, but it's like not that much. Down to replacement, so development and improve, or like a new kettle comes through, gets rid of the old one. Obviously you do have like the extension part of the product life cycle, but in things like a kettle you probably wouldn't have that. It would just, a new kettle will come out and you'd carry on. Other products it might develop and carry on, but for a kettle probably not. So that is marketing. If you've got any questions, send me a message on Teams or email and I'll get back to you.